Rob Zombie has returned with a brand new single, and it's called Punks and Demons, because of course it is. And that is going to be on the album that comes out February 27th, and that is called The Great Satan. I guess you can't get much more on the nose Rob Zombie than that. Honestly, every time I see that he's continuing to release music, I'm like quite happy, because you never know with him. He's kind of like in and out. He's got the film stuff, obviously. I've heard him say in multiple interviews that, you know, he definitely got burnt out of the music side of things at some point, and actually him finding a film career is sort of what was able to pull him back into doing the music stuff. But I'm a big fan of Rob Zombie. He's just one of those people that he's almost like everything I wish Marilyn Manson could have been. Like super sort of in-your-face, grotesque, kind of like horror-themed, kind of like metal character who's actually really well-spoken and intelligent and seems like a super nice guy. I mean, he doesn't seem to do loads of interviews, but I have seen him on a couple. I think he did Joe Rogan, actually, like slightly before Joe Rogan became King Meathead. Again, in those ones, he came across as kind of nice, to be honest, like a bit like kind of nerdy. He obviously had this obsession with the monsters, which led to the film that he released not long ago, which is we won't talk about that. I only picked him up comparatively recently. In fact, I think me watching House of a Thousand Corpses for the first time sort of triggered my interest in sort of seeing what the deal was, and now House of a Thousand Corpses is straight up my favorite horror film ever, and a couple of Rob Zombie's big songs are really, really, really amazing. I mean, like, I haven't really heard many Rob Zombie songs full stop that I don't like, but there are definitely a couple. One which I don't know how well like known this one is or regarded within like the proper hardcore Rob Zombie community, but I really love Dead City Radio. Something about that song is just so bombastic. It's got John 5 in there smashing his guitar, and the music video is like kind of nonsensical but really visually captivating, because of course it is. But you know, that is not my only one. Obviously Dragula is a classic, Living Dead Girl, the list goes on. So his last album was 2021, which maybe it's because the name of it is The Lunar Injection Kool-Aid Eclipse Conspiracy. I had forgotten that I actually did listen to this album a couple of times at least when it first came out, and saved a few of the songs. I quite like it. The two that made it through for me were The Triumph of King Freak and Boom Boom Boom. But having just had a quick scope through it again, there's actually quite a lot of stuff I like on there, but I think maybe it's a little bit divisive, because it's definitely not in the same conversation as like classic Rob Zombie. If you're thinking Dragula era, like it's slower, it's more experimental, it's way less shouty. God, there's one song on it called 18th Century Cannibals, Excitable Morlocks, and One Way Ticket on the Ghost Train, say that 10 times fast, which honestly, if you just clicked that on and didn't like know who was playing, you would not think it was Rob Zombie. It sounds like a Hillbilly song. Which I guess also does, you know, come together. It makes sense for Rob Zombie, considering the first album was in fact called Hellbilly. So yeah, I don't know, I quite like that one, but I have seen people have been welcoming the slightly more old school Rob Zombie, like Hellbilly era, crazy, like just heavy industrial metal with shouty, screamies. And I tell you what, that is exactly what it is. On first listen, I was a bit like, I don't know, it sounds a little bit repetitive. We'll go through it in a minute, but the chorus is basically just him shouting Satan a bunch of times, which is kind of fine in its own right, but I don't know, it didn't immediately grab me in the way that some of his more melodic songs have grabbed me, I guess, is maybe what I'm trying to say. But I've listened to it a few times now, and I will admit, it does kind of slap in the right context. If you're there for just some heavy head banging, or in the gym, running around, whatever you want to do that requires head banging, it definitely feels like it kind of ticks that box of it. I do like the energy. I mean, how old is Rob Zombie now? Oh, it's exactly 60. Fair enough. I feel like he dresses like somebody older than he is. Maybe it's because of all the like makeup and stuff, but yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I would have guessed maybe slightly older, but still, he's got this massive crazy intensity about him still. I wonder who the new guitarist is. So it's Mike Riggs on guitar for this one, who I mean, I'm not going to pretend I know exactly, but he was actually in the very, very early stuff. He was in Hellbilly Deluxe and the second album, Sinister Urge. I guess, and then he rejoined again in 2022 when John 5 left to go join Motley Crue, which I'm not gonna lie, I get it. I listened to a podcast with John 5 recently, actually. I get that like playing with Motley Crue is kind of crazy, but it feels to me a little bit like he traded down. But also, if I'm not mistaken, I think John Five played with Rob Zombie for like 18 consecutive years. So, you know, I do understand that. But yeah, I feel like the most recent era of Motley Crue has been divisive, to say the least. It's a good podcast, by the way. If anyone's noticed, Billy Corgan has now got a podcast I just stumbled across the other day. He's done like 20 episodes or something like that with obviously pretty big hitters. He is such a strange guy, but it's quite interesting. Honestly, I've listened to the Danny Elfman one through the other day. It's really good. Anyway, total side tangent. Let's jump in and have a listen through of Punks and Demons. I've not seen the video yet, so this will be new for all of us. Again, directed by Rob Zombie, because why wouldn't it be? So I'm expecting it to be chaotic and with lots and lots of cuts. Yep. Yeah, so you're gonna get this like a lot. To be fair, actually, the visual style is really reminiscent of the Dragula era, looking at it. It's the same kind of color palette and visual effects, kind of like, I don't know, slightly distorting it. Things are moving slightly out of time with each other, with these kind of reds and blues all kind of like real dialed up to 11. I'm sure there are some proper cinephiles who will have to tell me the specific effect or something like that. But yeah, it's a chunky old riff, isn't it? There's nothing better, really, than Rob Zombie screaming Satan in my ear. So I guess, yeah, the music video is just going to be them in front of a green screen. But I did also notice that the lyrics for this song are actually really weird in between the bits that say Satan a bunch. Tokyo encased in ice, the Führer has his bride, the life and times of Johnny Eck, deny yourself and open wide, Punks and Demons, Satan, Satan. Interesting. I would love to know what it is he's talking about. If anyone in the comments knows what the reference is to Tokyo encased in ice, maybe it's like a global warming thing, and maybe the Führer stuff is to do with the sort of rise of fascism that's currently going on in the West. It is definitely a skill of Rob Zombie to be just so, like, I don't know, rhythmic with everything. Like, his vocals are often, they're almost like rap or spoken word. He holds a note and it's just, it's all about where the words and the syllables fall, and the way that the rest of the back of the instrument, the riffs, the drums especially, like illustrate those bits. It's the way it comes out of this quite long stream of words, and then you stop for a second, you get the more staccato punks and demons illustrated with big snare hits, which actually, I appreciate it. On the surface, it could sound like it's like not very complicated, and within reason that's possibly true, but it's definitely kind of smartly played, right? Can you see what I mean, though? I have heard him say Satan like a lot of times in the first minute of this song. Also, that dude's guitar there with the smiley demon face and the like the neon paint in it, excellent, really excellent. I like that a lot. Just a visual style, like Rob Zombie is so distinct in his way of going about things. It's sort of like half Ghost Train, half punk rocker, which I guess is exactly the combination his music also sort of hits. But also with sparkly trousers, which I also really like. Yeah, I really love that transition. The way that they get into that little punks and demons breakaway really, I was about to say saves this song, but it definitely keeps it from feeling, I don't know, that little break is very welcome. Again, the situation, I guess, that this music is perfect for is like a live context where just everyone is able to scream the word that is being said a lot, Satan. And to be fair, if I was a devout Christian in a crowd that was singing along to that, I would be rather shocked. So, I get that context, and like the mosh pit must be fantastic. There's lots and lots of big head banging. It's good for that. Yeah, I don't know. I was painting earlier and it came on in the background and I was like, might skip right now, not my vibe. And then you get that really sort of like classic Rob Zombie guitar solo that's like borderline not even really a guitar solo. It's more of a kind of overdubbed sort of like extra layer that sort of hits this higher spectrum just to try and like sort of compensate for the vocals dropping out for a second. But it's also kind of like a bit dissonant. There's lots of like kind of like bending going on there. It really is soundtrack feely, right? These kind of parts, which obviously makes sense. What was that lyric? All the girls, passion and death, the great Satan rides. Object of fear, thus they kill, the great Satan rides. It's like good imagery. I quite like the word. I was going to say word salad, but that definitely isn't what I mean, because that's sort of used mostly as an insult. But you know what I mean? It's quite like kind of like, it creates an image without being very literal. It's definitely a skill unto itself to be slightly more kind of poetic and find nice analogies and stuff like that to use with your lyrics, whilst also keeping on a fairly, strong track of like scary Satan stuff. Satan. Yes, it's like actually more of an interlude than it is a solo, right? Yeah, so there you go. That is Punks and Demons by Rob Zombie. I still don't quite know exactly how I feel about it, if I'm honest. I like the vibe, I love the energy, the vocal delivery is very charismatic, so some big, fat, chunky guitars. It's so, yeah, I like all of that. The lyrics are kind of interesting enough when they're not repetitive, but I do feel like... Okay, the song's only 2 minutes 40, but I still feel like there was possibly room for more variation there. I feel like other songs he's released have got slightly more distinction between segments. I'm not sure. I don't know. I do like it. I like the energy. I get the feeling, and especially in the context of a full album, that I will end up really liking it. I won't skip it, I don't think. And, good for driving, that kind of stuff. But, I don't know. Some of the special sauce that Rob Zombie's like real great hits have, I feel like is slightly lacking in this, so we'll see. I'm curious to see what the rest of this album's gonna sound like, if the whole thing is sort of planning to be a bit of a return to the Hellbilly days, which again makes sense because it's the first time he's recorded an album with the original guitarist since John 5 left. So I guess, who knows, maybe it just turns out I'm a fan of John 5's guitar work, but I also really like a bunch of the songs of Hellbilly, so I don't know. We'll just have to see. I think an album of that will become boring after a while, but if this is the song that sounds like that, and there is some more variation in styles, and yeah, so on and so forth across the rest of the album, then there's no problem. What do you guys think? I've probably just managed to really, really piss off a bunch of the old school, like, proper Rob Zombie fans from back in the late 90s by saying I don't necessarily like the return to form as much as some, but anyway, let me know in the comments what do you guys think about this song, this new era. Did you like the John 5 era, or are you happy to have the original guy back again? Thank you very much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, all of that crazy stuff, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.